Chapter 2006. Urgent notice, the 2005 chapter was uploaded as an abandoned chapter. The author went out to do something, so he didn't have time to read it. Sorry, it has been modified. Everyone can read it again. Sorry. Black flame, what is this? Kunk. Weren't those things kept in the box? And this kind of kunk has never been heard of before. Seeing that her body was about to be devoured, Kaneshiro Rise panicked. Her expression turned cold as she did something that stunned everyone. Puchi. In order to avoid being swallowed and annihilated by Amaterasu, Kaneshiro Rise even abandoned her Kagun. Your strength is not good, but this decisiveness is admirable. Dustless nodded. It was rare to praise this gluttonous woman. If she did not sacrifice her Kagun, Kaneshiro Rise would also be swallowed. Your compliment makes me unhappy, but it makes me angrier. Hearing Dustless's praise, Kaneshiro Rise only became more and more gloomy, and then the broken Kagun erupted again. The new Kagun swayed strangely, like a dangerous giant python. This regeneration ability is quite fast. Dustless was quite surprised. He had heard that ghouls could regenerate, but now it was the first time to see it. It was quite interesting. Kaneshiro Rise, come on. Whoosh. Kaneshiro Rise was an SS-class ghoul. How could she tolerate this kind of provocation? She suddenly roared, and there was a flash of blood in the void, and then Kaneshiro Rise disappeared. Give me your body, young man. Almost instantly, Kaneshiro Rise rushed to the back of Dustless. The speed was like thunder walking in a straight line. It was extremely shocking, and the big mouth with sharp teeth that exuded the smell of blood. In a flash, she bit Dustless's neck. Thank you for your hospitality. With a sneer, Kaneshiro Rise couldn't wait to bite down. Kakaka. Suddenly, a strange cracking sound was heard. Kanzaki Rishi was in so much pain that her expression changed drastically. She suddenly realized that her teeth were broken and turned into powder. What kind of joke is this? Is this guy's skin made of steel? No, it's made of diamond. Kaneshiro Rise wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Her fangs could not pierce Dustless's skin at all. The fragrant food was right in front of him, but it was as if his mouth had been sealed and he couldn't eat. He could only forcibly endure the tempting fragrance. How could this not be miserable? This is not a diamond, it's just armament hockey. Dustless turned his head slightly to look at Kaneshiro Rise, and a powerful energy fluctuation burst out from his body. Shinra Tensei. Bang! Being so close to Dustless, Kaneshiro Rise was naturally unable to avoid the impact of the repulsive force and was instantly sent flying. Caw caw caw. Kaneshiro Rise's body smashed the wall, and her internal organs were shaken. This kind of injury was not so fatal to her, but Kaneshiro Rise's self-confidence was hit hard. By the way, did you just say that I am a superhuman? I now feel that this name is quite appropriate. CCG's White Dove wanted to kill him. Dustless naturally did not have a good impression. Ghouls also wanted to eat him. These two groups were serious enemies, and it was more appropriate to destroy them all. Goodbye. The sharp edge of the heaven-gathering cloud sword fell on the head of Kaneshiro Rise. When it was about to cut her throat, a sudden change occurred. It's really surprising, I didn't expect that there is such a powerful person in the 20th district. It's really interesting, Kakaka. A sound of astonishment and shock suddenly rang out. At the same time, it was accompanied by a crisp caw sound, as if someone had broken a bone. It was terrifying and horrifying. It's him. Kaneshiro Rise glanced at the figure in the dark and sneered, Are you looking for death? I am not his opponent. You are an S-class scum, are you confident? Jason, hurry up and run for your life. Jason, Wu-Chen also mentioned the name of the strong man in a suit with his hands in his pockets. He snorted coldly and said, "If you kneel down and kowtow to me to apologize now, I can pretend that nothing happened and let you leave safely. Otherwise, I heard that you have a tendency to abuse others. This is very good. Have you ever been killed by 1,000 cuts?" Dustless spat out cold air, and his face was filled with endless coldness. "Although I don't know where you came from, and I don't know whether you belong to a human or a ghoul, but I advise, hey." Without waiting for Jason's voice to fall, Dustless seemed to be integrated with the sky and disappeared without a trace. Where did that brat go? Jason saw such a scene and couldn't help but be stunned. He disappeared just like that. Did he need to be so abnormal? It's bad, this time I may really kick an iron plate. Jason's back was cold. Taking away Kamishiro Rise was one of the tasks given to him by the organization. Of course, he couldn't just watch Kamishiro Rise fall. Poochie. Suddenly he felt a pain in his arm. Jason turned his head to look. His right arm was already bloody, and it was cut off from the shoulder. "Jason, how do you feel?" "Next time it may be your head." Dustless, standing next to him, regardless of the stunned Jason, asked softly, "You, an SS-class ghoul, are not my opponent. You, an S-class ghoul, came out to make a fool of yourself. Is it really appropriate? Are all the members of Awaken tree like this? You bastard." His means were cut off by Dustless. Jason was furious. If he continued to be silent, he would inevitably lose face in the future. His back suddenly erupted a large number of dense cocoon, wrapped around the only remaining arm, and did not hesitate to enter the half-cocoon state. Chapter 2008. TSK, it looks really scary. Staring at the ferocious face of Jason, Dustless deliberately put fear on his face, but the teasing tone was obviously deliberately teasing Jason. Go to hell. Jason's face was extremely distorted, and his eyeballs protruded outward, as if they could burst out at any time, and his arm wrapped with cocoon came full force. Armament hockey hardening. Dustless did not hide, and his dark skin instantly covered his whole body. Boom! A heavy punch fell on Dustless's cheek, and the ferocious cocoon was like a fangs, like an invisible big mouth, which could easily tear people's heads. Kakaka. However, when Jason's fist hit Dustless with full force, the latter was not hurt at all, but Jason couldn't stand the vibration from the movement of his arm, and his body was bounced back again and again. Even the strong cocoon was cracked because Dustless's skin was too hard, and it was messy like a spider web. Fuck. Seeing Dustless was hit by his full force, but his face was intact, Jason couldn't help but burst out swearing, and he couldn't help but yell in his heart, "Who the hell is this guy? The gap is too big. Is he an SSS class ghoul? Even if he is an SSS class ghoul, he won't be fine." Jason sadly found that even if Dustless stood there and let him hit him, it seemed that he had no ability to hurt him. Right in his eyes, a bright light suddenly flashed, and suddenly a plan came to his mind. Jason asked with a sincere tone, "Are you willing to join our Awaken Tree organization? With your strength, if you catch Kamishiro Rise, it will be a great achievement, and I am afraid you will become a high-level member of the organization. Is that all you want to say?" Dustless glanced at Jason disappointedly and said sarcastically, "I am not interested in your organization. Of course, if your boss is willing to give up the boss position under her, but I can reluctantly consider it." "You bastard, no matter how arrogant you are, you should know when to stop." Hearing this, Jason was so angry that his nose was almost crooked. The cocoon on his back increased its output, and the thick blood-red cocoon kept getting thicker, and its strength seemed to be increasing. "You're quite capable." He stared at Jason in astonishment. It was not difficult to see that this fellow's strength seemed to have room for improvement. "Bring it on." Yawning lazily, Dustless's face was filled with disdain and annoyance. He purposely provoked Jason. The angrier a person was, the stronger he would be. Since you want to die so much, I'll fulfill your wish. The strong cocoon wrapped around Jason's entire arm, and his entire wrist became thicker. His tightly clenched fist was filled with explosive power. Go! Jason glared at Dustless with his fists raised high. Just as he was about to rush over, he suddenly turned around and ran away at the fastest speed he had ever run in his life, disappearing from Dustless's sight. Is this running for your life? After being in a daze for a while, Dustless only scolded until Jason disappeared without a trace. This cunning bug, he pretended to perish together with me, but in fact, he planned to run away. How clever. Ha ha ha, you just wait to be retaliated. Kaneshiro Rise was also stunned for a long time, and immediately noticed that she could not feel Jason's breath at all. Then she smiled. The next person who will retaliate against you may be their boss, just wait for your death. Do you mean the boss of Aojirai Tree? Hearing this, Dustless showed an unusual look of expectation. It seems to be the one-eyed king. The SSS class ghoul, if she comes in person, isn't this more interesting? She will just walk into the trap like you. Don't tell me you're saying. Kaneshiro Rise stared at Dustless, and there was a very terrible idea deep in her heart. She asked, you deliberately let Jason go, right? You madman just want to attract the attention of the one-eyed king, let them take the initiative to come to die, and kill them all. Do you want to fight against an organization alone? Who knows? Dustless shrugged, and a meaningful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and then he suddenly turned and left. Don't you plan to kill me? Seeing Dustless suddenly leave, Kaneshiro Rise, who was stunned, asked, I said I will retaliate against you. Hearing this, Dustless just turned his head and looked at her faintly, and then he immediately pointed to the sky with no expression, and then he lazily left again. What does this guy want to say? Seeing this, Kaneshiro Rise frowned, and at the same time, she subconsciously looked at the sky and saw a large number of falling steel pipes, and her pupils suddenly shrank and solidified. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A large number of steel pipes fell from the sky, and Kaneshiro Rise, who could not move her body, became a live target. Boom boom boom. A group of steel pipes all hit Kaneshiro Rise. If it was a normal situation, Kaneshiro Rise would naturally not care. The skin of the ghouls was extremely hard, and ordinary weapons could not hurt her at all, not to mention that Kaneshiro Rise was a top predator, SS class ghoul. But now it was different, she was tortured by Dustless's Tsukuyomi, and her body was seriously exhausted. Which bastard dares to plot against me? Leaving such a sentence, Kaneshiro Rise fainted. Jana Takahiro and Kotofuku, not far away, looking at Kaneshiro Rise who was fainted, Dustless looked up at the building dozens of meters high. A man wearing a white coat and looking kind and friendly was clearly visible, and of course, his experimental assistant Kotofuku. What should happen is still unavoidable. Through the powerful insight ability of Sharingan, Dustless also found the fainted black-haired boy, and he was unexpectedly familiar with Kaneki Ken. Chapter 2009. Some people are born with bad luck. Seeing the sad Kaneki Ken, Dustless was speechless. It could only be said that Kaneki Ken's life was too tragic. Even if the current thing had nothing to do with him, he was still unfortunately involved in it. It looks like the original work, Kaneki Ken is still going to be transformed into a ghoul. Occasionally seeing the bloody hole in Kaneki Ken's abdomen, Dustless estimated that even if Kaneki Ken was not attacked by Kaneshiro Rise, he still encountered some bad luck. Maybe he was stared at by other ghouls in the antique coffee shop and was finally rescued by Jana Mingbo. Forget it, it has nothing to do with me anyway. Taking a deep look at Jana Mingbo, Dustless turned and left. He was not interested in the transformation of ghouls, whether it was one-eyed or other types of ghouls, Dustless was not interested in them. But if this old man was looking for trouble, then don't blame Dustless for being ruthless. As for the strength of the old man, Urfu was unimaginably strong. In the future, he used overwhelming strength to hit the one-eyed king, but it did not have any effect on Dustless. Who the hell is that guy? On the top of the building, Jana Mingbo held a camera in his hand, and the scene that came into his eyes was how Dustless crushed Kamishiro Rise. He directly used overwhelming strength to hit Kamishiro Rise, who was an SS-class ghoul. The two sides were completely different players in the same field. It was as simple as a giant bullying a baby. Where did this creature come from? It's so strange. Jana Mingbo was puzzled. If Dustless was a ghoul, he did not have the Kagun eyes that belonged to ghouls, and he did not even have the Kagun. He was almost no different from humans. But since when did humans become so powerful? He even crushed SS-class ghouls with bare hands. As a result, what's the use of white dove? I really want to dissect his body. Seeing Dustless disappearing in the night sky, Jana Mingbo finally sighed. He just thought about this kind of thing. He was far from being able to do that. But it's good to give this video to CCG. Garner Mingbo smiled eerily. Dustless did not wear a mask like the other ghouls. It had to be said that he was extremely bold. Even the extremely powerful SSS-level ghouls, such as the store manager Yoshimura Karma and the One-Eyed King, did not dare to see people with their real faces. In this respect, Dustless was definitely the most bold. Time flew by like a white steed flitting by a crack. In the blink of an eye, a few days had passed. CCG's base camp. In the spacious and bright meeting room, a large number of people with suitcases gathered. The scene was extremely serious, and everyone's expression was unprecedentedly serious. Special ghouls like Arima Kisho, Shinohara Yukinori, and Marutotsuki all attended this meeting with great respect. And the one who was responsible for presiding over this meeting was CCG's boss, Washa Matsuri. Everyone, you have seen the video just now. What do you think of this bold guy? As the director, Washa Matsuri's face was heavy, his eyes flickered, and he was brewing anger. He actually crushed that big stomach king. The strength of this guy is not simple. Marutotsuki, one of the special investigators, looked at Dustless on the screen, and his old face was strange. But, what is this guy, a ghoul or a human? When Marutotsuki's words fell, it caused many ghouls investigators to resonate. For a while, the whole scene was noisy. Everyone was confused about the existence of Dustless. It was said that he was a ghoul, but there was no Kagun and Kagun. It was said that he was a human, but he did not need Kunk to crush SS-class ghoul Kamishiro Rise. This kind of existence was really puzzling. It was no wonder that Jana Mingbo couldn't wait to dissect Dustless. Quiet. Seeing the scene was noisy, Washa Matsuri, as the director, said very seriously with a straight face, "No matter what, this guy attacked the police and killed our CCG members. It is enough to see that this mysterious person has a great hostile attitude to us. Basically, we can judge that he is an enemy. So, I now decide to identify this person as an SSS-class ghoul and treat him carefully." Pointing to Dustless on the screen, Washa Matsuri said very coldly, "Even his danger level is more terrible than the SSS-class ghoul." What? Treat him as an SSS-class ghoul? After the scene was sluggish for a few seconds, the entire meeting suddenly exploded. So far, the SSS-class ghouls that appeared were rare, and the unkillable owl, who had disappeared for many years, was one of them. A few years ago, he was seriously injured by Arima Kisho, and his arms were cut off. Since then, few people had seen his trace. Quiet. Seeing that the younger brothers were talking again, the director and Washa Matsuri had to raise their voice. In this case, isn't it a bit hasty? This guy's origin is unknown. Although he killed our people, no matter how you look at it, he doesn't seem to be a ghoul. Rashly identifying him as an enemy is not worth the loss. The special investigator Kurapan Yen frowned and said. In his view, it was too rash to identify Dustless as an enemy in a hurry. It was equivalent to having a powerful enemy. Moreover, Dustless was not impossible to win over. Anyway, the other party was not like a ghoul, and there was no sign of eating people. Although Dustless killed a lot of white pigeons, he also seriously injured the S-class ghoul Jason and the SS-class ghoul Kamishiro Rise. At least, the current Dustless was at least neutral, and he did not help anyone. Arima Kisho always remained silent and did not join the debate like everyone else. His knuckles tapped on the table rhythmically as if he was thinking about something. This matter, I have reported it to the higher-ups. They decided to treat this guy as an SSS class ghoul. Washimatsuri made the final decision, and his tone was unquestionable, which was the opposite of his usual gentle tone. Chapter 2010. If Dustless knew that CCG had a plan against him at this moment, he would definitely sneer at them. Not to mention other people, just the director who called Dustless as an SSS class ghoul, Washimatsuri, was actually a ghoul. As the director of CCG, Washimatsuri was a ghoul. How strong can this group be? Moreover, the identity of Washimatsuri was quite mysterious, and it had a lot to do with some large organizations. Arima. What do you think? Washimatsuri had to look at Arima Kisho, hoping to win his support. Other CCG members did not seem to agree with his approach. Thinking about it, it was right to set up a strong enemy. If this person was really a ghoul, it would be fine, but Dustless was clearly a human being. Although it was very suspicious, wasn't it a typical behavior to identify him as a ghoul? Even if he is not a ghoul, but Arima Kisho was worthy of being Washimatsuri's good friend, or the two of them were the same kind, and Arima Kisho himself also had the blood of ghouls. He clearly knows that the person we sent is CCG, but he still dares to attack openly. It is not wrong to identify him as an enemy. I don't think there is anything wrong with it. On the contrary, we must implement a plan against him. This kind of comprehensive strength is not weaker than the SSS class ghoul. We must not ignore him. Arima Kisho expressed his position. Apparently he agreed with Washimatsuri's position. Hey, a group of special investigators could only sigh. Washimatsuri was the director of CCG, and Arima Kisho was known as the undefeated ghoul investigator. Both of them determined to treat Dustless as an SSS class ghoul, so other people's opinions were not important. Investigate, you must find out the identity of that kid for me. He didn't even wear a mask. He dared to come out and provoke us openly. I admire his courage and courage. Time flies. 5 days passed in a blink of an eye. Failed. In the stronghold of the Ayajirai Tree organization in the 24th district, a huge, ferocious monster looked down at Jason in front of it, and its hoarse tone was chilling. Its appearance was neither fish nor fowl, and its specific appearance could not be distinguished. Its entire body was made of hard bones, and the most striking thing was that it had a single blood-red eye on its face. Yes, Jason looked at the monster with fear. It was indeed the boss of the Ayajirai Tree, the Cyclops King. Is the guy you mentioned very strong? The one-eyed king looked down at Jason. She was not angry. She had the absolute right to speak in the Ayajirai Tree. Her strength was not covered, and the identity of the SSS class ghoul was not bragging. Not bad. Jason felt an immense pressure that he had never felt before. He quickly nodded. Everyone knew how cruel and ruthless this superboss was. No wonder, CCG gave him such a high evaluation, even more than me. The one-eyed king suddenly understood. Chapter 2011. Dustless smiled evilly. CCG would definitely be very interested in Kaneki Ken's kind of acquired Cyclops ghouls. Maybe they would be excited to dissect Kaneki Ken. Ouch! Perhaps because of Dustless's kick, Kaneki Ken was also hurt. The crazy eyes gradually calmed down, and the roar was not as hoarse as before. It's you. Kaneki Ken was stunned, apparently recognizing Dustless, who met in the coffee shop. "Hey, it's me, you are so brave, do you want to eat me? If I am eaten by you, I have lived for hundreds of years in vain." Staring at Kaneki Ken, whose face was full of blood stains, Dustless suddenly said, "How does it taste? Is human flesh delicious?" Human flesh. Hearing this, Kaneki Ken's face suddenly showed fear, and he subconsciously touched the corner of his mouth. Touching the wet blood stains, Kaneki Ken's whole body seemed to be electrocuted, suddenly twitching slightly, and his pupils suddenly enlarged several times, full of gray emptiness. "Don't be so sad, anyway, in my eyes, human beings and ghouls are the same kind of creatures, they are not good things, just jackals of the same tribe." When his voice fell, Dustless slowly forced Kaneki Ken. "You are talking nonsense, how can I eat human flesh, I am a human." Kaneki Ken shook his head hard, as if he wanted to shake out everything he had just heard. "Naive, I said that it doesn't matter to me whether you are a human or a ghoul." Dustless stared at Kaneki Ken and said, "And even if you deny it, it is useless, the instinct in the bones will not lie." Hearing this, Kaneki Ken glared at Dustless, and he judged that Dustless was deliberately attacking him. Ta. At the same time, a very discordant sound of footsteps suddenly came into his ears. Dustless immediately closed his eyes, and his observation hockey quietly spread. Only two people. With a slightly cold expression, Dustless temporarily raised the heaven cluster cloud sword and slowly walked away. As for Kaneki Ken, who had a face of despair, he had already been disregarded. "Manager, just leave the task of collecting food to me." The blue-haired girl blinked her watery eyes and looked at the old man in front of her with confidence. Dong Xiang, hearing this, Yoshimura Gyozen stopped walking. His squinted eyes suddenly opened, revealing a pair of dark red eyes. "Recently, too many white pigeons have died. Sooner or later, a special investigator will appear." Who exactly did it? Dong Xiang had a bewildered expression as well, and she was rather hesitant. "You too," a silent movement came from behind. Dong Xiang and the store manager, Yoshimura Gyozen, were both shocked. They subconsciously turned their heads, and their pupils constricted. The scarlet eyes flickered with evil afterglow, and the three slowly rotating magatama were far darker than the eyes of ghouls, and those who were stared at by them would feel like sitting on pins and needles. Chapter 2012. How do you know that I am an SSS class ghoul? Noticing that Dustless revealed his identity, Yoshimura asked in confusion. At the same time, his scarlet eyes were still jumping with anger, and the Kagun behind him was like a poisonous snake that came out of the cave, staring at Dustless. Well, hearing this, Dustless was speechless for a while. After all, he came from another world and knew too many secrets. After thinking for a few seconds, Dustless said, "There is no wall in the world that doesn't have a crack. I know very well who you have worked with before. A long time ago, when the store manager was young, she joined a special organization, V, and as a cleaner, she helped the organization clean up obstacles. Whether it was ghouls or humans, they were all the targets that the store manager eliminated. From then on, Fangzu and Gongshan lived a stable life." Are you also a member of that organization?" The store manager's cheeks changed dramatically when he heard the words. He was full of vigilance, and his whole face was tight. As an SSS class ghoul, Yoshimura could only be a cleaner of the V organization, which was enough to see the horror of the organization, and its strength was far stronger than the Aojairai tree. "This is not. I just know some of their secrets." Dustless shook his head like a rattledrum, and immediately said bluntly, "To some extent, I am the enemy of V, we might as well cooperate." The store manager's eyes were shining, and he suddenly became interested. How to cooperate? The store manager Yoshimura knew that the people of the V organization would never easily let him go, and they would come to his door one day. It didn't matter if he died, but the store manager didn't want to implicate his daughter, Yoshimura-ite, who was the current boss of the Aojirai tree, the one-eyed king. It's very simple, you will retire, and this, 20th district, will be my territory in the future. Dustless smiled and said, you can find a place to live, and you will have no worries from now on. You. Hearing this, the store manager's mouth twitched a few times. Was Dustless cooperating? It was obviously a robbery. You bastard, pay attention to your tone. Kirishima Tuka suddenly became angry, her eyes turned scarlet, and she stared at Dustless with a bad face. If you dare to say that again, I promise that you will be beheaded. Hey, you are really hot, be careful that you can't get married, Miss Kirishima. For the threat of the girl, Dustless just smiled. You want to challenge me with your current strength, I can barely be 1,000 times stronger. Are you looking down on me? Hearing this, Kirishima Tuka's back swept out magma like Kagun, burning like a flame, quite spectacular. That's enough, Dong Xiang. What he said is true. Stop it. Taking a look at Dong Xiang, the shop manager Yoshimura Karma said with a rare command. It was too easy for a ghoul who was evaluated as SSS class by CCG to kill Kirishima Tuka, and she would be killed in seconds even if she had no chance to fight back. Ouch! At the same time, the ferocious biting sound suddenly came, and attracted the attention of the three people for a moment. Everyone's eyes were cast at the same time, and they all frowned. Kaneki-ken, this kid can persist. What if he is hungry? Dustless touched his chin, and the corner of his mouth had a hint of playfulness and expectation. Why does he have the smell of rice? Sniffing gently with her nose, Kirishima Tuka's tone was confused, and then she suddenly remembered something and clenched her fists. Did he swallow rice? This is not the case, things are like this. Dustless shook his head and told the store manager and Kirishima Tuka in detail that Amami Rise attacked him, as well as being ambushed by Jana Maihiro and Kudofuku. He also told the current Kaneki-ken that he had been transformed into a one-eyed ghoul. Is he the college student whose organs were modified in the news? Kirishima Tuka looked at Kaneki-ken with a complicated look, and her clenched fists finally loosened. Toka, you go to prepare enough bodies, and then burn all the unusable ones. Remember to be careful, don't let the people of CCG find out that you died here. The store manager, Yoshimura Karma, told Kirishima Tuka seriously. It was not far from the antique coffee shop, and CCG's nose had always been very sensitive. What is your plan? The store manager looked at Dustless helplessly. If he let this guy go, sooner or later he will attract a large number of white pigeons, and the peace area he created will collapse. I don't have any ambition, I just believe in one principle: the land under my feet is mine. Dustless said, his calm tone was obviously not joking. You don't have ambition. Hearing this, the store manager, Yoshimura Karma, was speechless. The land under your feet is yours. This treaty is too overbearing. Doesn't it mean that if one day he goes to CCG's base camp, then CCG's site will be Dustless's? You can join my antique coffee shop temporarily. After thinking about it, the store manager only thought of such a way to restrain Dustless. The movement made by the SSS class ghoul was definitely not a small matter. If Dustless disappeared, the white pigeons may run to other areas to investigate Dustless's traces, but if they continue to make trouble, the entire 20th district will be unlucky. In a sense, the antique coffee shop that was the leader of the 20th district will inevitably be implicated by Dustless. The store manager did not want to help Dustless. From another point of view, the store manager was helping himself. Chapter 2013. And him, the store manager Yoshimura looked at Kaneki-ken, and the meaning was self-evident. You also join my antiques, otherwise you will be found by the white pigeons sooner or later, and the end is even more miserable. staring at Kaneki-ken's one eye. The store manager could only sigh at the twists and turns of fate. For humans, becoming a ghoul was a nightmare, and now there was a unique Kaku eye, and it was impossible to stay out of it in the future. Kirishima took a frown and seemed to be unwilling. As for Dustless, he had an indifferent look. It was impossible for the store manager to not know about the legend of the one eye, and he would never let Kaneki-ken leave. Dustless's brows suddenly frowned, and the coldness on his face flashed away. Is there an intruder? At the same time, the store manager also found a slight movement. He was also an SSS-level ghoul, and his strength was naturally not comparable to Kirishima Tuka's. It's just a small fish. After a moment of silence, Dustless's 3-tomo Sharingan recovered its calmness, and he was unmoved. No matter who it is, people who see our real appearance must die. The store manager Yoshimura's eyes jumped with an unknown killing intent. Although he seemed to be more charitable, in the final analysis, he was an unkillable person who stepped on countless corpses. So many scumbags are wandering in my hunting ground, do they put me in their eyes? Lazy, but with a few murderous tone, then a young man with glasses and orange hair slowly came, and the two eyes were obvious. Your hunting ground. When he heard the words, Dustless glanced at him faintly, and the 3-tomo Sharingan that had disappeared appeared again. Boy, you say it again, I didn't hear it clearly, whose hunting ground is it? Of course, being stared at by Dustless's scarlet eyes, the man felt that his soul was trembling, and his throat seemed to be stuck by an invisible big hand, and it was difficult to continue to speak. What a strange eye. Is this really the Kaku eye of a ghoul? The store manager frowned and stared at the strange eyes intently. After feeling the darkness that came out of it, he could not help but change his face slightly, and he also felt extremely uncomfortable oppression. No wonder CCG's evaluation of him is SSS-level ghoul. The store manager suddenly realized that CCG seemed to look down on Dustless. Jean, when did this place become your hunting ground? Kirishima Tuka obviously knew this young man with orange hair, and her eyes flashed with hostility. This person was Nishio Jean. Don't think I don't know, that gluttony is dead. Nishio's tone, she said coldly, so now the 20th district is his territory. What an arrogant little brat. After hearing the words, Dustless slowly walked out of the dark corner. With the help of the vague moonlight, Nishio Jean saw the real appearance of Dustless. That gluttony was sanctioned by me. Since you said it's your territory, come on, let me see if you have more value than her. Dustless hooked his finger, and his mouth was full of evil intentions. It's you. After seeing the real face of Dustless, Nishio Jin's face suddenly flashed with panic. In the past few days, Nishio Jin was fortunate to see the scene of Dustless slaughtering the white pigeons. That unparalleled strength, no matter what level of investigator, it was just a hand and a knife, the slaughter process was less than a second. Cough, I still have something to do, goodbye. Looking at Dustless in fear, Nishio Jin was like a deflated ball, and she quickly fled desperately. Really, am I so terrible? Dustless was speechless, he didn't seem to bully Nishio Jin. Why was this girl more afraid than seeing the devil? Was it so exaggerated? Damn stinky pervert. After looking back and seeing that Dustless did not chase, Nishio Jin was relieved. She didn't know that Nishio Jin's heart had already called Dustless a super devil. Whether in the face of ghouls or humans, Dustless could always maintain a one-sided crushing momentum. Store manager, you don't need to kill him. Kirishima Tuka stared at Nishio Jin unkindly, her face was full of cold breath. Tuka, the essence of our antique coffee shop is to provide a safe shelter for the ghouls in the 20th district. It's okay to let that guy leave. Since he knows how to escape, it means that he is a smart person. He knows what to say and what should never be said. The store manager Yoshimura Kozen's face was indifferent, and then he left alone. This old man, Dustless, couldn't help but look at Yoshimura Kozen speechlessly. To be honest, he really admired this calm SSS class ghoul. It was really shocking that a ghoul could be so kind. But it was precisely his kindness that led to his defeat in the future. All creatures, the survival of the fittest, this was the iron principle that would never change. The so-called peace and stability were completely controlled by the strong. Why can the store manager maintain the stability and peace in the 20th district? It was because he was an SSS class ghoul, and defeated all the ghoul organizations in the 20th district with overwhelming strength, which created a shelter dedicated to providing food for ghouls. So, if he was just an ordinary ghoul, would anyone listen to him? The answer was naturally no. However, the feeling of being under the same roof with a group of monsters who eat people is really a new experience. Seeing Kurishima took a collecting the corpses, Dustless's face was indescribably strange. Of course, Dustless's interested eyes also had an indescribable expectation. Chapter 2014. CCG's Base Camp. In the past few days, a large number of investigators were killed by the mysterious SSS class. We should be careful when searching. That guy is not something we can fight against. If it's not good, we should retreat. Two figures slowly walked out of the building that went straight into the sky. Both of them were wearing CCG uniforms and holding suitcases. It was Mato Wusu and his partner Amon Kotaro. The SSS class ghoul is really rare, especially this guy is really weird. We don't even know what his name is. Whether he is a human or a ghoul is still unclear. Mato Wusu looked at the photo in her hand, her face showed a bloodthirsty smile, and she went straight. The young man in this photo was Dustless. I understand. Amon Kotaro nodded heavily, looking at Dustless in the photo, he felt the pressure. In just a few days, as many as hundreds of ghoul investigators were annihilated by Dustless. It could be imagined how terrifying his strength was. The SSS class was well deserved. It's really boring. In the antique coffee shop, through the window, Dustless stared at the scenery of the outside world in a daze. His eyes were empty and hesitant. It was really strange to be with a group of ghouls who liked to eat human flesh. If everyone was the same, after all, they had a common language, but Dustless found that it was really difficult to integrate into this group. And some ghouls could smell the delicious human smell from Dustless, and even cast longing eyes to Dustless. Greed and covetousness were difficult to hide. Dustless was really not happy, and his chest was stuffy for a while. God is really blind, sending me to this world where birds don't shit. Dustless cursed in his heart. Dustless, you and Tuka go to pick up a friend for me. Perhaps seeing that Dustless was too bored, the store manager Yoshimura Gyozen patted his shoulder. Friend? Hearing this, Dustless turned his head and asked strangely, the store manager's friend? Do you need me to pick him up? That's right. You can go with Dong Xiang. Remember to wear this. The store manager handed Dustless an ugly mask, indicating that he should wear it when he went out. Otherwise, it would cause unnecessary trouble. This thing is useless to me. I've already been exposed. If I wear this thing outside, people will only think I'm more suspicious. Dustless shook his head. He placed the mask on the table and left with Dong Xiang. It was great to leave the shareholders' coffee shop. Dustless was really uncomfortable to live with a group of hungry ghouls. Kaneki Ken was the best example. Who are we picking up? He shouldn't be the store manager's friend. That old man is an SSS-level monster. No matter how bad his friend is, he should at least have the strength of an S-level, enough to fight against a special investigator. His eyes fell on Tuka's head. Dustless seriously analyzed, that old man is probably kind-hearted again. Let's go together to save the ghouls. This old man should at least be dedicated to his job. As a ghoul, he should eat more people instead of saving people. He is so kind to be a CCG. Dustless was entangled. The store manager was really not like a ghoul. You are a sharp guy. Kirishima looked at Dustless with great surprise, and immediately nodded and said, yes, the people we are going to pick up this time are Mrs. Fuguchi and her daughter Fuguchi Hinami. It turned out to be like this. Dustless heard the words and had a little impression of the mother and daughter. Hey, Amon, is this an unexpected gain? Mato Wusu twisted his cheeks and stared at the mother and daughter waiting for the car in front. His face that was like dead bark was enough to scare ordinary people. Mato-san, are you referring to the mother and daughter? Amon Kotaro also looked at Mato Wusu's eyes, and the figures reflected in his eyes were Fuguchi Hinami and her mother Fuguchi Ryoko. Yes, don't you think they are suspicious? I have seen this mother and daughter in some information. Mato Wusu's eyes were shining, and his right arm was trembling. Amon Kotaro was stunned and immediately asked very awkwardly, sorry, Mato-san, I don't see where they are like ghouls. Do you have evidence? Evidence? Glancing at Amon Kotaro, Mato Wusu said very disdainfully, no, Amon, sometimes intuition is enough. Let's go and see, the fox will show its tail sooner or later. Mom, look, someone is coming. Fuguchi Hinami pulled the corner of Fuguchi Ryoko's clothes and pointed to Mato Wusu with a smirk. White pigeon. Compared with the simple Fuguchi Hinami, Fuguchi Ryoko's face was obviously frozen. Under nervousness, she sweated uncontrollably. The white pigeons were wearing the same uniform, and they also held the same suitcase, so it was very easy to recognize them. Hinami, let's leave here first and wait for Tuka in other places. Seeing the crazy eyes of Mato Wusu, Fuguchi Ryoko, who realized that something was wrong, took Fuguchi Hinami and left quickly. Amon, did you see that? This mother and daughter really have problems. Mato Wusu sneered again and again. However, from their actions, they should be rookie ghouls who have just entered, and they chose to run when they met us. Doesn't this mean that she has problems? Her behavior is really stupid. Mato-san's words make sense. Amon Kotaro nodded deeply, but he was extremely puzzled. Intuition. Is it so accurate? What else do we need to investigate? Let's just train our intuition. It's good that the two of them ran away. Killing them on the street may cause unnecessary trouble. Witnessing Fuguchi Hinami and her daughter walking into the abandoned building, Mato Wusu quickened her pace, and her eyes flashed with tyrannical light. Decades ago, Mato Wusu's wife, Mato Wei, was killed by ghouls, and her body was bitten beyond recognition. Since then, Mato Wusu had become very energetic and hated ghouls. Chapter 2015. Therefore, every time she faced ghouls, her nose was more sensitive than a dog's nose, and she had an intuition that could predict the future. All in all, whether it was a coincidence or an accident, the mother and daughter pair, Flute Hinami and Flute Ryoko, were now in unprecedented trouble. Hey! Did you see that, Amon? These two want to run. Ha ha ha, stupid. Mato laughed sarcastically while running. They must die today. Yes, ghouls don't have the value of living in the world. Amataro nodded and agreed with Mato's words. Ordinary livestock could help humans fill their stomachs, but ghouls, not to mention filling the stomach of humans, if humans were not eaten by ghouls, they would be blessed by God. Hinami, you run first, I will drag them. Looking back, she found that Mato and Amon were getting closer and closer. Flute Ryoko stopped decisively and signaled Flute Hinami to leave first. She could only delay the time to give Flute Hinami time to escape. Run. You still want to run? It's ridiculous, if we can't even run away from two pigs, it's better to go home and farm. Mato, who caught up, sneered, and his pupils were filled with killing intent. For ghouls, he had a deep hatred and disgust. If he could, Mado would like to kill all the ghouls in the world. Mado-san. Kill them as soon as possible. Although Amataro felt that Mado Wusu's analogy was inappropriate, seeing his twisted cheeks, he tactfully shut up. People with mental disorders had countless sad past behind them, and there was no need to touch their scars. Go, Hinami, you will only drag me down if you stay here. Hurriedly pushing away the reluctant Hinami, Flute Ryoko's eyes turned into Kagun eyes, and huge Kagun-like insect wings swept out from her back. Humph, overconfident. Mado snorted and immediately looked at Flute Hinami, who was running away, and ordered, Amen Kuin, I will leave that little devil to you. Don't worry. Amataro nodded and chased with all his strength. Who would have thought that at this time, the world in front of him suddenly became dazzling. Whoosh! In the abandoned promenade, there was a huge flash, and the bright light fell from the sky. Almost instantly, it was close to Amataro. Boom! The flash turned into a powerful kick, and it hit Amataro's chest. Poochie! The latter's face suddenly changed, and the red blood broke out of his throat. Hey, bullying orphans and widows, this kind of thing, your CCG seems to be very good. The light converged and gradually condensed into a human silhouette. The light voice was filled with endless calmness. Then, a handsome figure walked out of the light. SSS class ghoul. After seeing the newcomer, Wushua's old face twitched fiercely. He took out Kunk at the fastest speed in his life and stared at Wuchen fiercely. Old man, if I want to kill you, the time you took out Kunk is enough for me to die 100 times. Chapter 2016. It was not that Mado Wusu wanted to destroy her own prestige and boost other people's morale. The SSS class ghoul was extremely ferocious. It was too easy to crush a ghoul investigator. For example, the highest level special investigator wanted to defeat the SSS class ghoul. Of course, there were only a few ghoul investigators who were similar to Arima Kisho. But then again, this SSS class ghoul let us go. Is his head broken by the door? Mado Wusu supported Amataro to leave. He was even ready to die, but the strange thing was that Dustless did not chase them. Who knows, are all ghouls so kind now? Amataro murmured in confusion, full of puzzlement. Hey, that kid will regret it. Mado Wusu's cheeks were distorted. He did not have the slightest sense of joy after the disaster. All that was left was endless hatred and disgust. Hatred was the pillar of Mado Wusu's life. Especially the sentence Dustless just said, it deeply hurt his self-esteem. I don't like to bully the weak. This sentence was obviously looking down on them. That guy is really courageous. CCG is worried that there is no suitable code name for him. This guy dares to take the initiative to tell his name to us. Amataro, do you think this kid is looking down on us, or is he too confident? Mado Wusu supported Amon Guntaro and always felt that this was a great humiliation. Yes, he will regret it. Kotaro Shimon's face was also full of anger. Today was definitely the most sullen day in his life. He was beaten up by Wuchen. He was almost killed in a face-to-face encounter. Now, he even needed Mado Wusu's help to go back. He had lost all his face. Are you crazy? On the other side, Mado Wusu and Amataro just left. Kurashima Tuko looked at Dustless angrily, and her words were full of anger. You even let the white dove go. Do you know how many ghouls will be killed by such behavior? Her beautiful eyes widened. Kurashima Tuko looked at Dustless and pouted her lips. Of course, if he remembered her ferocious ghoul identity, he wouldn't think she was cute at all. In any case, although there were good and bad ghouls, their nature of eating humans had not changed. Miss Kurashima, you may be mistaken about one thing. Dustless glanced at Kurashima Tuko faintly, and said softly, "I have a cooperative relationship with your store manager, Yoshimura Kozen. Are you using this tone to talk to me? Are you ordering me?" As soon as he finished speaking, the surrounding space suddenly became much colder. "You." Noticing that the surrounding air had become cold, Kirishima Tuka's face changed greatly. She subconsciously looked down and was shocked to find that the ground under her feet was covered with a layer of crystal-clear ice. "Have you figured out your position now? You are not qualified to order me, including Yoshimura Kozen. Remember, he asked me to join the antique coffee shop, not because I am willing to or find a reason to join." Chapter 2018. Does this guy want him to eat me? Kaneki Ken screamed in his heart, seeing Dustless gloating. He was full of hatred towards him. This bastard was obviously deliberately trapping him. He did not offend him but still hurt him. There must be an unknown premeditated plan. Ghouls were very sensitive to the smell of human beings, just like humans smelling delicious food. They could not help but eat. All these were subconscious instinctive reactions. Golo. As Dustless guessed, Jukiyama-shi's mouth was dry, his eyes radiated the light of the wolf, his cheeks were almost crazy looking at Kaneki Ken. There was an indescribable desire. Everyone in the antique coffee shop, seeing this scene, all frowned. Dustless was obviously deliberately trapping Kaneki Ken. Although he exuded a unique smell, everyone could smell it, but Dustless deliberately kicked Kaneki Ken, obviously deliberately trapping Kaneki Ken. Let Jukiyama-shi notice this delicious eye. "Hee, his taste is pretty good." Dustless laughed with bad intentions, his mouth showed a bright smile, it was full of endless banter. "You bastard, don't talk nonsense, I am not delicious." Kaneki Ken, who was desperate, quickly pointed to Dustless, his face showed clear fear. Being stared at by Jukiyama-shi's greedy eyes, his body could not help but tremble. "Manager Yoshimura," Jukiyama-shi smiled faintly, looking at Dustless, his brows immediately frowned. He always felt that this guy was a bit familiar, but there was no memory of this guy in his impression. "What's the matter?" Yoshimura asked plainly. "Why don't you give me a price? How about selling these two guys to me?" Staring at Wu-chin and Kaneki Ken, Yusanshi was so excited that he almost danced with joy. His eyeballs were so excited that they almost popped out. "Such a wonderful food material. Who are you saying is food material?" A cold voice suddenly sounded. Dustless looked at Jukiyama-shi with no expression, the dead eyes were like an abyss, the depth could not be seen. Although everyone's time together was still short, people like the manager Yoshimura and Kirishima Tuka, who were barely familiar with Dustless, knew that this guy was on the verge of exploding at this moment. Ha ha ha. As for Jukiyama-shi, he still had an ignorant elegant chuckle, he looked very gentlemanly, he did not know that he had been targeted by a real hungry wolf. Let Dustless teach this so-called gourmet a lesson. Seeing such a scene, the store manager was silent and did not express any opinions. He had always advocated that ghouls should live in harmony with each other, but Jukiyama-shi had a nickname of a gourmet. Not only did he treat humans as delicious food, but he also did not let go of ghouls. Therefore, borrowing Dustless's hands to let him recognize himself, this might not be a bad thing. Do you know what kind of person is the stupidest person in the world? Chapter 2019. Ao. Jukiyama-shi's hands covered his stomach, his cheeks were twisted violently, and he was in pain. "I remember, this guy is the SSS class ghoul that was recently listed by CCG. Jukiyama-shi suddenly remembered Dustless's reflection, he wanted to slap himself. Jukiyama-shi, the Jukiyama family he belonged to, had a lot of connections in Tokyo. When Dustless became an SSS class ghoul, he got the exact news. But at that time, he just glanced at him casually. After all, he and Dustless had no intersection, and the two sides had no grievances. But as the saying goes, enemies are bound to meet. Jukiyama she did not expect to encounter Dustless at this moment. Oh no, this time I kicked an iron plate. Jukiyama she was sad, he suddenly provoked a character that he could not afford to provoke, and his heart was blocked. It's all because of this hateful boy. Looking at Kaneki Ken, Jukiyama she's eyes were full of hatred. If it were not for Kaneki Ken, he would not be so absurd to eat such a big person as food. Therefore, all the mistakes were on Kaneki Ken's head. You still have the mood to hate others. Seeing Jukiyama she wanted to eat Kaneki Ken alive, Dustless sneered, his right hand shook slightly, a large number of photons rushed out from his 5 fingers and turned into a hot light sword, Kusanagi no Kento. Kakaka. Seeing this, Jukiyama she also knew that a big battle was inevitable, and now he did not show weakness and released his Kagun, and his eyes became scarlet Kagun. At the moment when he became a ghoul, Jukiyama she's body was full of raging and crazy aura. It looks like you still want to eat me. Dustless snorted, staring at the Kagun wrapped around Jukiyama she's right arm, and muttered, this seems to be Kaku. I remember that Kirishima Tuka's Kagun seems to belong to Yukaku. Looking up, he saw a circle of spiral Kagun wrapped around Jukiyama she's right arm, and the front end became a big sword filled with cold light. There are many types of Kagun, such as Kirishima Tuka's Yukaku, Kamishima Rise's Maigaku, Nishio Brocade's Maigaku, and Tsukuyama Seiki's Maigaku, all of which have different characteristics. Gyaku's defense was stronger, but its speed was slower. Yuha's explosive power was extremely strong, but his consumption was excessive. As for Kamishiro Rise's Rinkaku, she had strong regenerative abilities, high attack power, but weak defense. In short, all the different types of Kagun have their own merits. I want to see what's the difference between you and the SSS class ghoul. I haven't tasted the meat of the SSS class ghoul yet. The moment the voice just fell, Jukiyama she rushed to Dustless like a breeze. You overestimate yourself. The store manager, Yoshimura Gyozen, shook his head and didn't even bother to look. Ao. A strange scream came from the corner of his mouth. Then Jukiyama she's right arm, which was condensed from Kagun, chopped toward Dustless's head. Seeing this, Dustless did not move, quietly looking at Jukiyama she's attack. The corner of his mouth was swept with an imperceptible sneer. He did not avoid it. It was completely unnecessary. Puchi. The sharp Kagun sword cut through Dustless's body and ruthlessly cut his whole body. The upper body and the lower body were separated, and fell to the side. Ha 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 ha, rampant laughter came out from Jukiyama she's mouth. He laughed triumphantly. What SSS class ghoul, in front of me, it's just, Puchi. Jukiyama she suddenly felt a sharp pain in his back. He turned his head and looked, his eyes almost exploded. Aren't you dead? Jukiyama she was shocked, he just cut Dustless into 2. How did this bastard resurrect again? Moreover, Wu Chen's spirited appearance was obviously unscathed. You just slashed at the air, that's all. Warm flashes of light lingered around the compound wound, nourishing the gap in Dustless's body. In less than a few seconds, his whole body was completely restored to its original state, repaired by the elemental transformation ability of the glint fruit. It's my turn. Suddenly stepping on the ground, the floor exploded in an instant. Dustless's body broke out an amazing explosive nature power, and he rushed like thunder. My Kagun is the strongest Kagun in defense. I don't believe you have any means to tear him. Jukiyama she was not afraid. More dense Kagun broke out from his back, and immediately wrapped his whole body, as if covered with a layer of indestructible armor. His limbs and bones were wrapped by Kagun. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At the same time, the hot edge of Kusanagi's sword suddenly came, and there was a close contact between the two. Puchi. Caw. Kagun, who Jukiyama she had high hopes for, was very fragile. It was pierced through by the edge of Kusanagi's sword, and even his body was hit by a fatal blow. The scorched knife scar looked a bit shocking, and even filled the air with the smell of rotten meat. Plop! The attack brought by the attack obviously damaged Tsukiyama-shi's body. He fell to the ground like a lamp without oil. The wound on his abdomen made him grimace in pain. You want to stop me with this kind of plaything? Glancing at the remains of Kagun on Tsukiyama-shi's body, Dustless stepped on his head, and couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. These days, children's thoughts are so rich and ridiculous. You want to use a piece of paper to stop a shiny knife, Tsukiyama-shi. If your teacher knew your behavior, he would probably be angry. In Dustless's eyes, was there any difference between Kagun's defense and a piece of paper? Damn it! Tsukiyama-shi was angered by Dustless. His body wanted to stand up, but he was powerless. The knife had already brought great damage to him. Even if he was not a ghoul, Tsukiyama-shi would have died at this moment. If he blew a little bit harder, his soul would be gone. This feeling was really uncomfortable, especially Tsukiyama-shi, who was used to being high in the mountain. He was severely destroyed by Dustless, almost leaving a serious psychological barrier. However, as soon as he left the antique coffee shop, an unexpected figure hiding in the aisle revealed a meaningful smile at the corner of his mouth. This is the SSS class ghoul. I heard that he is called Dustless. His strength is good, but it is too strange. The girl's appearance was delicate, her delicate face was like a carved jade, and her pink lips made people can't help but want to go up and peck gently. This person was called Takatsuki-sen, the leader of Awaken Tree, and also the daughter of the store manager. A day ago, she felt the 20th district, but Takatsuki-sen was not in a hurry to contact Dustless, but chose to secretly observe the movements of Dustless. Is this guy really a ghoul? Why can't he fight at all, even Kagun eyes and Kagun? Without exception, Takatsuki-sen made the same question as others. The fighting method of ghouls was usually to use Kagun to duel, but Dustless seemed to be a bit strange. Whether it was the previous battle, or the one-sided suppression just now, it seemed that he did not use Kagun as a weapon. I can join forces with her, maybe I can break the order of the world today. The girl's face outlined a charming dimple. Takatsuki-sen was quite proud to touch her chin, her white fingers slid around, her watery eyes sometimes flashed a cunning charm. It was hard to imagine that he was the SSS class ghoul, the one-eyed king. That guy is. At the same time, Dustless in the antique coffee shop, his sight also moved slowly, and finally fell on the leaving figure. The messy and slender hair was very conspicuous. The real SSS class ghoul came to me. Suddenly remembering the identity of the person who came, Dustless suddenly became interested, and said to himself, this Yoshimura Gikusen is too kind, I was wrong to associate with this guy. Although he was an SSS class ghoul, Yoshimura Gikusen did not have the appearance of an SSS class ghoul. Perhaps the false piece meant more to him. As for his daughter, Takatsuki-sen, she was an out-and-out butcher. It was absolutely impossible to be soft-hearted. Even the reason why antiques would be annihilated in the future was completely because Takatsuki-sen deliberately sold the news to CCG. It had to be said that a daughter like Takatsuki-sen was rare. However, this time, the way Dustless took was different from before. The reason why he cooperated with the manager was that he wanted to know more about the world. Although he had the memory of the previous life, some knowledge that he did not understand must be popularized by the manager to Dustless. But if the object was changed to the Awaken tree, it was not necessary, he could directly suppress it. Chapter 2021. I still have something to do, I have to leave for a while. After Tsukiyama-shi left, Dustless suddenly spoke, and immediately walked to the room where he usually slept. It seemed that he was going to pack his luggage. You want to leave? Yoshimura Gikusen frowned and asked. He was sure that he was going to go far. If he just went out for a walk or to relax, there was no need to pack his luggage. Yes. Dustless simply admitted, his eyes spread slightly, taking in everyone's gentle faces, and then said bluntly and indifferently, this environment is not suitable for me. Do you think this peaceful life is annoying? Yoshimura Gakushin's rough cheeks were slightly tight, he looked quite nervous. The peace he created was torn by dustless, they could only stand on the opposite side of each other. Who knows? His scarlet eyes flickered with nightmarish demonic light, just like a hungry wolf that chose a person to devour. A strange brilliant smile appeared on his dry mouth, and then Wuchen walked to his room. This guy, the store manager Yoshimura Gakushin, clenched his fist. At first, he drew Dustless to cooperate with him. The real purpose was that he hoped that Dustless could enjoy this rare peace, and in the future, he would face crises and defend it. But now it seemed that it was just a dream, out of reach. How could a person who was keen on war enjoy peace? Mr. Tetsuya, Yoshimura Gyozen looked at the silver-haired man beside him, revealing a deep and frightening pair of eyes. He said in a heavy tone, "When Wuchen leaves later, secretly follow him. If you discover that he has done something out of the ordinary, if you can kill him, try to kill him, if you can't, you can withdraw, pay attention to safety." Tetsuya heard the words and nodded with no expression. Even if he knew that Dustless's strength had reached the SSS level, he was still willing to take risks. "Really, how long has it been that Takatsuki-san ran away?" In the dark, smelly alley, there was a foul smell everywhere. Human bones could be seen everywhere on the ground, and there were clear sounds of crying and howling. It was probably some hungry ghouls who were eating. The young man, who looked very young, about 17 or 18 years old, was wandering in the alley. The person who looked around was Dustless, who was looking for the trace of Takatsuki. Senator Dustless's plan was quite simple. He took the identity of the boss of Ayajirai Tree from Takatsuki's senator. If she was willing to be a follower, then it was easy to talk. If she resisted, he could only beat her until she was convinced. "There seems to be a rat following us." His eyes leisurely looked back, and then his observation hockey quietly spread, and all the movements within a few hundred meters appeared clearly under Dustless's eyes. "So it's him." Dustless continued to move forward without batting an eyelid. The Scarlet Pentagonal Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan seemed to be screaming, making an unknown and terrible movement. Dustless's eyes focused on Tetsuya Tensei's body, and the place that was stared at by Dustless suddenly had an unexpected change. Amaterasu. With Dustless's order, the Scarlet Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan rotated, and Tetsuya Tensei's body burned with a black unknown evil light in the blink of an eye. "Bastard, what is this situation? When did I get burned?" The burning pain swept all over his body like a tide. Tetsuya Tensei's cheeks were full of fear, and he frantically extinguished the black flame burning on his body. But it seemed to be of no use, the flame could not be extinguished at all. Shit! After realizing the uniqueness of Amaterasu, Tetsuya Tensei was desperate. He didn't expect Dustless to be so evil, and also have such a terrible trick. Puchi! In the end, Tetragrammaton gritted his teeth and cut off his right arm and shoulder. The burning Amaterasu was separated from Tetragrammaton's body. "Your courage is commendable." Seeing this, Dustless couldn't help but look at him in a new light, but his eyes were still cold. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Light appeared, and Dustless instantly disappeared again. He was like a ghost, coming and going without a trace. "I am not his opponent, I must find a way to reverse this embarrassing situation." Tetsuya Tensei quickly planned in his heart, realizing the gap between him and Dustless. He was frustrated, and Dustless was bullying him like stepping on an ant. Remembering Yoshimura Gyozen's order, Tetsuya Tensei immediately turned around and fled to the exit. Since he couldn't kill Dustless, he could only run for his life. Retreat. After making up his mind, Tetsuya Tensei fled at lightning speed. There was no other way. The difference in strength between them was too big. "Did I ask you to run?" "Humph, 90 black coffin of breaking Tao." The pure black shadowless blades appeared out of nowhere, and attacked from all directions. Tetsuya Tensei didn't even have a place to hide. Wherever he ran, the black light would follow, as if it had eyes, and he couldn't get rid of it. Puchi. 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 In the end, Tetsuya Tensei's body was penetrated by the black light, and countless pieces of rotten flesh peeled off from his body. Some parts of his body were even reduced to bones, and all his organs were destroyed by dustless. Plop. After being injured so easily by dustless, Tetsuya Tensei lost the strength to support his body, and fell to the ground helplessly. Chapter 2023. It's sad. Glancing down at Sifang Rincher, Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. This guy clearly knew that his strength had reached the SSS level, but he had to come here to play some secret tracking. Before, Dustless also deliberately revealed his breath to be discovered by Sifang Rincher. His original intention was to hope that this guy would be sensible and leave. Who knew that he was still so ignorant and finally followed him? Cough cough cough, Sifang Rincher was obviously not completely dead. Although his internal organs had been destroyed, he still had a breath left. You are really like what the store manager said, you want to destroy the peace he created. Looking at Dustless blankly, Sifang Rincher looked helpless. Funny. Hearing this, Dustless stepped on Sifang Rincher's head and said disapprovingly, the so-called peace can't be created by a retired old man, he is too self-righteous. Kakaka. With Dustless's voice fell, Sifang Rincher's head suddenly exploded and turned into a pile of brain. And you? Suddenly turning his head, Dustless stared at the looming figure in the darkness and said coldly, you have seen enough, now it's time to come out and perform. This protagonist is dead, the other protagonist should show up. Amaterasu. It seemed that it was not fierce enough, Dustless destroyed Sifang Rincher's body, and the black flame evaporated it. Ah, this fierce style is very similar to us ghouls. A clear and melodious female voice was pleasing to the ear. In the darkness, a figure could be clearly seen strolling over. Her messy long hair added a touch of wildness to the young girl. How should I call you? The girl gradually came out of the darkness. Dustless asked faintly, Ito Yoshimura, Takatsuki-sen, or, the One-Eyed King is more suitable. By the way, you seem to be the boss of Aijairai Tree, right? What's the name of the idiot who was taught a lesson by me last time? It seems to be called Jason. He is also from your organization, right? He dares to attack me, is it your order as the boss? You, hearing this, Takatsuki-sen's calm face suddenly collapsed. Where does this guy come from? Why does he seem to know all my secrets at a glance? Takatsuki-sen looked at Dustless with a vigilant face, and could not help but lower her head and ponder. Tell me why you're here. Since it was rare to talk nonsense, Dustless simply said, if I'm interested, maybe you can leave here safely. You're really arrogant, Takatsuki-sen could not help but be speechless. It was the first time for her to see someone like Dustless who was so arrogant. Everyone was SSS class ghouls, and even one-eyed ghouls had more advantages than two-eyed ghouls. She really did not know where Dustless's confidence came from. How about we cooperate? Takatsuki-sen said her chips and said, overturn this rotten world in one fell swoop, establish a new system, a world where ghouls and humans coexist, bullshit. Unexpectedly, Dustless was not interested in listening to Takatsuki-sen's nonsense, and sneered, One-Eyed King, it seems that I have overestimated you, you are as stupid and childish as your father. What did you say? Hearing this, Takatsuki-sen looked angry, and there were a lot of Kagun erupting from her back, and it was about to cover her whole body. Don't you understand such a simple truth? You're just a child who has not grown up. Dustless despised Takatsuki-sen for a while, and continued to satirize, can a mouse get along with a cat? Can a snake coexist with an eagle? Can water and fire be compatible with each other? When you say that humans and ghouls can coexist peacefully, with all due respect, I already feel that you are mentally ill. The way of life of ghouls was to feed on humans. It was destined that the two sides could not coexist peacefully, even if they ate the dead people. If your family's elder who died of illness was eaten by ghouls, can you tolerate it? From the moment when ghouls were born, they were destined to fight with humans until one side was completely annihilated. That is to say, Takatsuki-sen's eyes suddenly shot out scarlet anger, and she asked coldly, that is to say, you intend to refuse to cooperate with me? You want to leave me alone? It seems that you want to be my enemy. Be your enemy. You're really ignorant. After a little exercise, Dustless rushed to the front of Takatsuki-sen in an instant, and the sharp edge of Kusunagi's sword was taken out of the scabbard. I'm not your enemy, it's just a boring one-sided annihilation like just now. So fast. Her pupils suddenly shrank, and she was shocked with cold sweat. She panicked in her heart, we are both SSS class ghouls, why is the speed gap so big? This kid. Shoo shoo shoo. At the same time, a large number of Kagun gushed out from Takatsuki-sen's back, like a poisonous snake. It went to Dustless to bite. Puchi. Who would have thought that the moment they touched the edge of Kusunagi's sword, they were all cut off and swept away. Light speed kick. Then Dustless rose in the air, his right foot covered with high-density flash, and unceremoniously greeted Takatsuki-sen who had been wrapped by a large number of Kagun. Boom boom boom. Under the violent impact, the Kagun that had just covered the whole body collapsed and disappeared in an instant. Takatsuki-sen revealed her original appearance again. SSS class ghouls. This strength is really disappointing. The sword pointed at Takatsuki-sen's neck. Dustless sighed with boredom, and at the same time, he suddenly noticed two strange breaths behind him, and then he sneered again and again. Your lackey is here too. You're overestimating yourself. All of a sudden, light filled the sky as countless divine weapons drilled out of the void. Wang Kai Bao. Chapter 2024. In the void, there were energy ripples all over the sky, and there were a lot of ripples in the void like rain. Then, countless magical weapons came out from it. The deadly cold light shrouded the oppressive atmosphere. These magical weapons, obviously, each of them had an extraordinary structure, which could be called the best of the best. Ghouls have this kind of trick. Why haven't I heard of it before? Is it because we don't know enough? Three surprised voices came from Takatsuki-sen and her two younger brothers, Noroi and Tatara. If you feel surprised, it can only show that you are short-sighted. Glancing at the two of them lightly, Wu Chen's mind moved slightly. Then, a continuous spectacular rain of weapons fell from the sky, and all of them stabbed at the two people who were stunned. You two quickly retreat. Takatsuki-sen yelled angrily, and secretly scolded the two people. The square lotus just now was the most suitable example. It was the same as Tatara and Noroi, but what was the final result? It was crushed by Dustless, and even its body was not left. Shoo shoo shoo. The number of weapons shot down was too many, making people overwhelmed. There was no place to escape. They could only resist this wave of destructive and powerful attacks with their bodies. There was no place to hide. Puchi. 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 The two people's bodies suddenly became full of holes. Although they used Kagun to wrap their bodies were still full of a large number of weapons. Their expressions were extremely painful, especially Tatara, his cheeks were distorted. As for the SS-class ghoul, Noroi, it was a bit strange. His body could recover at will, even if his head was cut off, he could recover again. TSK, these two cats and dogs are not bad, they deserve to be looked at differently. Dustless nodded with interest, especially this Noroi's ability was quite amazing. This powerful recovery ability made Dustless couldn't help but think of the super regeneration of the Daimu Void. Ow ow ow. At the same time, there was a heart-wrenching scream from the opposite side. Taking advantage of the time when Dustless dealt with the two younger brothers, Takatsuki-san also completely changed into the state of Kakuja. The whole body became strange, surrounded by a large number of Kagun. The scarlet eyes on the face stared at Dustless fiercely. Submit or die. The white bone big hand pointed at Dustless. Takatsuki-san questioned in a cold tone. Even when she spoke, the fierce roar was full of a wave, which was enough to shake the human's eardrum and make the blood come out. Humph. Hearing that, Dustless just waved his sword. The golden cold light in his hand instantly penetrated Takatsuki-sen's ugly arm, and the wound suddenly began to spurt blood. I should be the one asking this question. Will you submit or die? Dustless asked coldly after he cut off the arm of Takatsuki-sen who had turned into Kakuja. Anyway, Takatsuki-sen's resilience was strong. Even if her arm was broken, she could grow another one, and it would not have any bad effect on her. Ao. On the contrary, perhaps because of Dustless's provocation, Takatsuki-sen was irritated. Her big bloody mouth showed dense sharp teeth, and then she fiercely bit him. You don't know when to stop. Seeing this, Dustless also gave up the mercy in his heart. It seemed that only by beating her, this girl would be obedient. Is your body big? But in fact, mine is bigger. Ken Susanoo. A lot of chakra erupted from the body, and a mighty figure suddenly appeared, with a ferocious appearance, and the mighty figure radiated an unknown murderous aura. Ao. Under the control of Dustless, Ken Susanoo's big mouth also made a sharp roar, and the brutal sound waves turned into endless impact and spread out. Boom boom boom. Unable to bear the impact of Ken Susanoo, the long-abandoned warehouse first shook, and then it couldn't bear the impact of Ken Susanoo's explosion and collapsed in an instant. What the hell is that? Seeing the super monster covering Dustless's body, everyone was stunned. They widened their eyes in disbelief and stared at the giant that was emitting an oppressive aura. Not to mention fighting, just looking at it made their confidence crumble. Noro, this battle is not something we can participate in, it's better to hide and watch. Tatara said with a very unwilling look. He didn't expect Dustless to have such a big killing move, and the mighty figure was even bigger than Takatsuki-sen's body. What is this? Your Kakuja state. Takatsuki-sen was also shocked. She, who understood Kakuja's words, stared at the terrifying energy giant, and felt an unprecedented small and unbearable feeling. If you know the limit of Ken Susanoo, maybe you won't be so shocked. Seeing the shocked Takatsuki-sen, Dustless was too lazy to explain. He had already bet on Ken Susanoo as small as possible, but the mature Ken Susanoo covering his body, whether in power or physique, crushed Takatsuki Sr. Clang clang clang. Immediately, under the shocked gaze of Takatsuki-sen, a golden sword of several meters long suddenly appeared in the broad arm of the golden Ken Susanoo, aiming at Takatsuki Sr. Gulp. Feeling the sharpness of the golden sword, even with Takatsuki-sen's calmness, she couldn't help but be stunned at this moment, and for the first time in many years, her body had goosebumps. I must open more. If I'm hit by that thing, I'll be finished. Perceiving the fatal danger of the light sword, Takatsuki-sen decisively chose to avoid the sharpness, and decisively swept to the obstacle on the left. It seemed that she wanted to avoid Dustless's attack. Chapter 2025. Are you running? Dustless and the mature body Ken Susanoo sneered again and again. Takatsuki-sen's childish behavior was really funny. The word escape in front of Ken Susanoo was meaningless. When the ultimate monster Ken Susanoo appeared, it meant that everything had come to an end. It's good to play the game of cat and mouse occasionally to change the mood. Ken Susanoo held the katana of light to change the direction. Wherever Takatsuki-sen ran, the hot edge would follow, like an automatic navigation. There was no way to escape. Damn guy. Finding that she could not get rid of Dustless's attack anyway, Takatsuki-san simply showed her ferocious side and gave up the plan to escape. Phew! Her ugly big feet rushed at the fastest speed in her life, and she crossed several meters in one step. You know that you can't escape, so you simply choose to kill me. Is this your last resort? Dustless's eyes narrowed slightly, and a dangerous light jumped in his eyes. Immediately afterward, Kansusanoo covered the whole body responded to Dustless's anger, and the katana swept out. Poochie! A huge slash whistled out. The dazzling light brought with it an unparalleled power. Even the air was cut apart by the chi, ripples that could be seen with the naked eye rippled out. Oh no! Realizing the danger of the oncoming slash, Takatsuki-san in Kakuja form was shocked and quickly avoided it. However, although the idea was good, the speed of the slash was too fast, and the direction was extremely tricky. It just aimed at Takatsuki-san's head, and it would kill her. Poochie! The dazzling edge penetrated Takatsuki-san's body and tore her body into pieces. Several arms on the left side were all cut off at once. There were several broken bloody arms scattered on the ground. Did I miss? Dustless frowned and immediately raised the katana of light again. Wait! Takatsuki-san was disgusted, seeing the katana of light held high, her scarlet eyes flashed with fear. This sublime power crushed her inner self-confidence into powder. Wait! Looking at Takatsuki-san carefully, Dustless said coldly, "Are you going to surrender?" No room for cooperation. Takatsuki-san didn't give up and asked, "If we cooperate, we can definitely destroy this distorted worldview. Human beings and ghouls can live in peace, you also." Swish. Swish. However, before Takatsuki-san continued to talk nonsense, Dustless's mature body Kansusanoo chopped down again. Boom boom boom. A huge and dangerous slash once again came rushing over. The biting cold edge of the slash cut a long and narrow crack in the ground. Its speed was several times faster than before. Damn it! Takatsuki-san cursed loudly. When she wanted to escape again, it was too late. Poochie! The unstoppable slash crushed her body and almost split Takatsuki-san into two. Although she escaped the fatal attack at the critical moment, even so, 1/3 of her body was still destroyed. It's so dangerous. Fortunately, I escaped from this blow in time. So many years of hard practice really didn't waste. While gasping, Takatsuki-san was in a cold sweat. She didn't have the demeanor of an SSS-class ghoul and the king of Ajirai tree. Instead, she was very lucky like a clown. You barely dodged this attack. Hearing this, Dustless couldn't help but laugh out loud. One-eyed king, do you know that if I didn't deliberately go easy on you, you would have been completely annihilated in the first slash? What do you mean? Did you deliberately let me go before? Takatsuki-san's face was pale. She thought that her strength was strong enough, so she was saved several times in a row. But it turned out that all this was because Dustless let her go, which was a big blow to her. You don't believe it. The mature body Kansusanoo's katana of light was raised high in the sky again. Not only that, Dustless's eyes suddenly rotated. Kakaka! A large number of high-density chakra broke out again, and the size of Kansusanoo expanded again. Compared with before, it became bigger in an instant. I'm asking you for the last time, are you sure you want to continue to fight against me? Surrender or die. Staring at the incomplete Takatsuki-san, Dustless's tone was obviously full of killing intent, full of strong bloody smell. Compared with before, Takatsuki-san's confidence was greatly lacking. She wanted to continue to fight, but the bad physical condition made her have no reason to answer Dustless. Although the recovery power was extremely strong, it could not be regenerated infinitely, and the consumption of each recovery was quite large. Moreover, this was not the most fatal problem. The key was that Dustless's Kansusunu was obviously much bigger than before. Under this situation, Takatsuki-sen was desperate. Well, you win, from now on, you are the boss of the Ajarai tree. The form was stronger than the person. Takatsuki-sen had to bow her head. She was afraid that if she continued to resist, Dustless would really not hesitate to kill her. You know what's good for you. After hearing the words, Dustless's Kansusunu disappeared, and the huge oppressive feeling that shrouded the surrounding disappeared out of thin air. The several mountains that were on the chest of Takatsuki-sen and others also disappeared. Until Kansusunu disappeared, everyone's breathing became normal. The deterrent power of Kansusunu before was too big. The deadly oppressive feeling made people full of despair for the future, including the SSS class ghoul Takatsuki Sr. So, the new boss, what's the next plan of our organization? Looking at Dustless, Takatsuki-sen was quite curious about the purpose of Dustless. Well, it's very simple. Dustless pondered a little, and immediately said coldly, kill CCG, kill all the white pigeons, those people who don't know what's good for them still want to catch me, kill CCG first. Chapter 2026. Annihilate CCG. When Takatsuki-sen heard about Dustless's ambition, she couldn't help but be stunned. With the current strength of Ajarai tree, the chance of annihilating CCG was 0. First of all, not to mention other people, Arima Kisho alone was strong enough to make other ghouls desperate. Yes, my purpose is to annihilate CCG. Those white pigeons are so bold. They even identified me as an SSS class ghoul. They have identified me as an enemy. If I continue to let them live, isn't my kindness too cheap and ridiculous? Dustless said seriously, and at the same time, he looked at Takatsuki-sen with deep meaning. This guy and Arima Kisho have a cooperative relationship. Staring at Takatsuki-sen, who returned to her human appearance, Dustless was silent. About 10 years ago, Takatsuki-sen and Arima Kisho set foot on a pirate ship, and Arima Kisho himself also had the bloodline of ghouls. Arima Kisho was actually the one-eyed king, before Takatsuki-sen, and later the two reached a secret cooperative relationship. But all this had nothing to do with Dustless. Those who follow me will prosper, those who oppose me will die, whoever goes against me must die, that's all. Let's go, take me to your organization to see. Looking at Takatsuki-sen and others who were stunned, Dustless left. Dustless and others left for about half and 15 minutes, a large group of white pigeons came. Such a big movement, it was impossible for no one to notice it. It's a fierce fight. Mado Wusu carefully observed the messy battle scene, and could not help but frown. Especially when she saw the long and narrow cracks on the ground and the warehouse destroyed by the overwhelming strength, she felt even more incredible. Can this still be done by ghouls? It's too strange. It seems that only the SSS class ghouls can make such a big movement. Marutsuki came to Mado Wusu, they had known each other for decades. Although the relationship was not harmonious, the 10 years of friendship was not a joke. Compared to this boring question, I'm more concerned about, at the same time, a handsome man with white hair and glasses attracted everyone's attention. The kuinku in his hand was completely different from the others. The suitcase was pure black. Who is the person who fought with the SSS class ghouls? Looking at the messy battle scene, and the cracks left by Susanu's destruction everywhere, it was a ghastly sight. Even Arima Kisho couldn't help but fall silent at this moment, thinking about who was so powerful. The only SSS class ghoul that Arima Kisho could think of was the one-eyed king, but who was the person who fought with him? In the base of the Ajarai tree, Takatsuki-sen completely entered the Kakujige state. Her appearance was extremely ferocious, which was the opposite of the previous petite girl. She exuded a majestic anger. Seeing Takatsuki-sen, the followers of Ajarai tree were stunned and subconsciously distanced themselves from this guy. Takatsuki Sen's brutality was famous in Aojirai Tree. From now on, at the same time, a hazy black shadow slowly walked out of the darkness, wearing a casual coat, and his face always had a slight arc. The appearance of this person attracted a lot of ghouls who did not know what he was doing. He is the new boss of our Aojirai Tree. Takatsuki-sen pointed at Dushless. She was quite unwilling to give up the Aojirai Tree that she created by herself. She was really unwilling. However, what can she do even if she was unwilling? Dustless defeated her. The world of ghouls was so cold and ruthless, either they were superior or they would always be a dog. It's you. In the Aojirai Tree, there were obviously people who were familiar with Dustless. After hearing the words, Dustless was also attracted by this person. He swept along the place where the voice sounded, and the corner of his mouth suddenly surged with a faint arc. Isn't this Jason? The strong man who came into his sight was Jason, the strong man who looked like he saw a ghost. Why, do you have a problem with me? Seeing the stunned Jason, Dustless just glanced at him lightly, and immediately said coldly, if you want to continue to challenge me, I can give you a chance, but the result will definitely be the same as before. You. After hearing the words, Jason dared not to say anything. He subconsciously glanced at Takatsuki-sen, who had obviously not healed wounds on her body, and his face suddenly became pale. Boss was defeated by this guy. Jason looked at Dustless with great fear, and decisively gave up. According to his understanding of Takatsuki-sen, this girl would never easily hand over the position of the boss of the Aojirai Tree. Since she chose Dustless to inherit the Aojirai Tree at this moment, then the two sides must have had a big fight, and if it was not wrong, the one who was defeated was Takatsuki-sen. The scars on her body were the best example. I have a problem. At this time, a very dissatisfied tone suddenly came, revealing endless dissatisfaction and doubt. Is this guy a ghoul? He has a clear human taste. Let our food lead the ghouls. I can't accept this kind of funny joke. Looking at the source of the sound, the young ghoul with a handsome face with a few traces of arrogance suddenly floated like an eyeball. Isn't this Kirishima Ayato, the younger brother of Kirishima Tuka? Interesting. With a few imperceptible smiles on his face, Dustless asked with interest, what do you think is appropriate? It's very simple. Kirishima Ayato did not even think about it, and said without hesitation, of course, defeat. The words on his mouth stopped abruptly. Kirishima Ayato suddenly sweated. Looking up, the dark red eyes were staring at him motionlessly, and his soul was trembling at this moment. Chapter 2027. Do you still have any opinion? Dustless stared at Kirishima Ayato and said lazily, if you have any opinion, just come, don't worry, I won't kill you, of course, I will only beat you half to death. Dustless's harsh words fell into the ears of Kirishima Ayato. His sweaty cheeks suddenly showed anger, his eyes stared straight at Dustless, as if he was not done with him. But the funny thing was, in any case, Kirishima Ayato did not dare to do anything. Damn, what level of ghoul is this guy? Kirishima Ayato screamed in his heart. Dustless's violent momentum made people not dare to act rashly, even breathing felt uncomfortable, oppressed, and maybe suffocated at any time, let alone fighting. Listen to me, you group of bastards. Seeing that Kirishima Ayato was scared, Dustless's cold voice passed through everyone's ears. No matter who your former boss is, now you just need to understand that your boss is called Dustless. The result of disobeying me is very simple, that's it. Amaterasu. Dustless's eyes slightly stared. The ghoul who was focused by his sight did not have time to scream, and turned into dust in the blink of an eye. This guy, when the members of Aojirai Tree saw this scene, they all nodded like a rattledrum. Dustless's ruthlessness seemed to be more than the one-eyed king. If I don't kill a few people, how can I scare you group of idiots? Dustless smiled and did not speak, and immediately his eyes fell on Takatsuki-sen's body, staring at her huge body. Tomorrow we will start to attack CCG. First destroy CCG in the 20th district. The group of white pigeons is too annoying. The next morning. The sun just rose. CCG was attacked by a large number of ghouls, and they were busy jumping up and down. This time the ghouls were bold to the extreme. They even fought with CCG on the road during the day. Unfortunately, CCG was still at an absolute disadvantage. They were beaten by the ghouls, and almost all of them were in the trend of collapse. The pedestrians on the road were scared and fled. Damn it! Did these bastards take the wrong medicine? Some of the CCG members who resisted in the front cursed. In the past, ghouls were almost in the gloomy corners. The number of times they attacked CCG in the daytime like this could be counted on one's fingers, or even none. Although the ghouls were strong, CCG was not bad, but this time the army suddenly invaded, the white pigeons were defeated, so that the CCG's high-level officials had to hold a large-scale combat meeting to discuss the serious issues at hand. In CCG's base camp. The director and Shuji Matsuri, who were angry, saw the battle report in their hands, and finally smashed all the teacups in their hands, and roared furiously, "What happened to the group of ghouls? They dare to attack us in public. Who is controlling all this behind the scenes?" The usually gentle and elegant Shuji Matsuri's eyes were red at the moment, and the speed of breathing was several times faster than usual. It is an organization called Awaken Tree. It is very powerful and unusually mysterious, and it is said that, as one of the special investigators, Marutitsuki reported, Dushless, who was listed as an SSS class ghoul by us some time ago, also joined this powerful organization, and there is more news that he is the boss of Awaken Tree. Dustless was different from other ghouls. He had always been alone, and he did not have the hobby of wearing a mask. Therefore, it was not a big problem for CCG to get his own information. Dustless. Shuji Matsuri was stunned, and immediately asked calmly, "Do you have enough confidence to defeat that guy? Because of him, the whole Tokyo is now in a mess, and we are asked to eliminate this evil organization immediately." Seeing that Shuji Matsuri hated ghouls, and even wanted to tear all the ghouls into pieces, all the CCG members who participated in this meeting nodded deeply. But if Dustless was here, he would not be able to help but laugh, because Shuji Matsuri, as the director, was an out-and-out ghoul. Not only that, CCG also had a special identity, V organization. In other words, CCG was an extremely evil organization. In the past, ghouls were hiding in the dark, living like rats crossing the street, but now it was different. After Dustless was upgraded to the big boss of Awaken Tree, all the ghouls were active, and now they attacked CCG even more fiercely. Ding ding ding, at this time, the phone on the table suddenly rang. "This is," Shuji Matsuri frowned, and immediately picked up the phone decisively. When he was about to speak, there was a voice asking for help on the other side of the phone. "I am Mado Wusu. I encountered One-Eyed Owl here, and Dushless, who is listed as an SSS class ghoul. They seem to be colluding." On the other side, Dushless and others also frowned. "Is it appropriate for you to let him leak information like this?" Takatsuki-san stared at Dushless. She saw this guy lazily leaning on the wall, enjoying the comfortable sunshine in the morning, and his comfortable appearance seemed to be very obsessed. Mado Wusu called the senior management of CCG in front of them and reported all the tragic situations here to Shuji Matsuri. "What do you think is not appropriate? Instead of letting us find CCG, it is better to let them take the initiative to come to us. Isn't it more suitable and faster?" Dustless said his thoughts. It was too troublesome to find them one by one. It was better to let them ask for support. It was better to kill them all. That's right, it is better to take the initiative to attract all the white pigeons to destroy them. Takatsuki-san nodded immediately. It was indeed faster to lure the enemy to destroy them than to find them one by one. Chapter 2028. Amon, support for a while, the reinforcements will come. Mado Wusu glanced at the tired Amon Kotaro. She pretended to be calm on the surface, but she smiled helplessly in her heart. A superior investigator and a first-class investigator resisted 2 SSS-class ghouls, as well as 2 SS-class ghouls, and even several S-class ghouls with good strength. What is this if not a dream? I will give you 2 a chance to choose, just pick an opponent. If you can win, you can go back alive. Looking down at Mado Wusu and Amon Kotaro, Dustless rarely showed kindness. Hey, are you looking down on us? The young and aggressive Amon Kotaro was angry, his hands were holding Kuin-ku tightly, the Kuin-ku in his hand was terrible like a meteor hammer. I am afraid that ordinary people can't hold it. Since you let us take the initiative to choose the enemy. The sharp eyes were like an eagle, Mado Wusu's eyes swayed around, and finally fixed on Dustless, and said with a very certain tone, no, it's you. The boss of Ajairai Tree. Ha! Mado Wusu's words fell, and before Dustless opened his mouth to attack, other people couldn't help but ridicule. Is your head broken by the door? With your level, you still want to challenge Dustless? Jason sneered loudly. How did you become a superior investigator with such a stupid head? Yes, he must be an idiot, or he was upgraded to a superior investigator. The SS-class ghoul Tatara also sneered. Don't talk nonsense, do you dare or not? Mado Wusu asked coldly, her rough old face showed no regret and determination. Is your purpose? Dustless glanced at Mado Wusu, and immediately walked slowly. Forget it, don't say that I am bullying you. If he didn't guess wrong, Mado Wusu just wanted to test his trump card. After all, CCG's White Pigeon's understanding of Dustless was still blank, and then the information obtained from Dustless was transferred to other ghouls. Attack, Amon! With a shout, Mado Wusu swooped down, and the umbrella-shaped conch smashed towards Dustless's head. The speed of this ghoul investigator is not bad. The silent Takatsuki Sen's words had a rare appreciation. Although Mado Wusu was a superior investigator, his real strength was far beyond this level, and his movements seemed to be very skilled, and he did it in one breath, and his speed was also the same. Of course, Mr. Mado will definitely smash his head. Amon Kotaro was elated. Wusu Mado had always been the person he respected the most. Something will be smashed, but... Takatsuki Sen's tone was a little strange. She had witnessed the hardness of Dustless's head. Bang! The all-out attack with the weight of Mount Tai smashed onto Dustless's head, and a burst of caw-caw-caw sound was immediately heard. Success! Hearing the cracking sound similar to the skull's collapse, Amon Kotaro was overjoyed and looked along the line of sight. His ecstatic face was frozen, and his eyes were staring at Dustless, almost falling out. How is this possible? Amon Kotaro was shocked to find that even if Dustless did not have any defense and was hit by Mado Wusu, his head was safe and sound, and his cheeks always remained calm. What was broken before was, damn, is this bastard's head made of diamond? Mado Wusu cursed, staring at the fragments of conch on the ground. He wanted to cry but had no tears. Just when his conch smashed onto Dustless's head, his conch instantly collapsed and became a pile of useless debris. Is the head of a ghoul so hard? The hardness of a diamond may not be so high. The conch of the ghoul investigator was destroyed, indicating that he has no way out, so... Amon Kotaro raised his thumb gently, the front part condensed dazzling light, and a large number of high-density photons gathered on it. In the next life, I will be a panda with no worries, so I won't suffer. Laser. The light without an end point flicked out, the speed was too fast, and it disappeared in a flash, almost the time to react. It penetrated Mado Wusu's body. Poochie. The heart on the chest was pierced by the hot light, and a burnt hole about the size of a fist was clearly visible. The whole heart of Mado Wu Su had been evaporated by dustless boom. Her heart was destroyed, and even the gods couldn't save her. Mado Wu Su lost the source of her power, and her soul seemed to be taken away, and she fell to the ground helplessly. Mado-san. Amon Kotaro came quickly, trembling, holding the body of Mado Wu Su, and the whole person was twitching slightly. I want you to die with me. The most respected idol was killed. Dustless's cold action completely ignited Amon Kotaro, who was a powder keg. He desperately took Conk like a meteor hammer and smashed it. Boz. Seeing this, Dustless gently waved his right arm, and activated the glinting fruits ability. The palm of his hand was like a black hole, full of majestic gravity, and a large number of photons in the vacuum were absorbed. Yasekani no Magatama. His expression turned cold, and he decisively threw out a large number of flashes in his hand. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The golden light holes in the sky shot out, and the number was overwhelming, and all of them bombarded Amon Kotaro like a rainstorm, and each light bullet had an indestructible edge. Poochie. 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 The biting cold halo penetrated Amon Kotaro's body, and his whole body was like a sieve, and there were tiny holes left by the flashes everywhere, including his head, which was densely packed. Your relationship is like that of a master and a disciple. Letting the two of you die together is the heavens giving me face. You have to thank me when you go to hell. Wu-chan muttered in a low voice and brushed past the two of them. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.